stuff that, we knew about, but we had to learn, we had to research this when we started this project, because you can't go into a project like this without having an understanding of what is the industry that I'm walking into. But loblolly pines have shorter needles than longleaf. They don't produce as good a quality pine straw. Actually, in some states, Georgia and other states, they do harvest loblolly and other slash pine for pine straw, but you can tell a difference in the bale compared to longleaf. Longleaf has a much prettier color, it lasts longer, and it has a longer leaf that's more desirable, or longer needle that's more desirable. So the longleaf, though, is special also because it creates a unique ecosystem. And if here we're close to Weymouth Woods, you can go out to Weymouth Woods and see an old growth longleaf pine ecosystem. Right now, longleaf pine is down to close to give or take 3% of its original range. When the settlers came over, Columbus and others in the 14, 15, 1600s, they started cutting down longleaf pine trees because the quality of the timber was so good. The longleaf makes much better quality timber than the loblolly does, but it grows much slower. The longleaf might take 50 to 60 years or more before it's ready to be cut, and then the loblolly will be ready to cut in 25 years or so, 25 or 30 years. And because of that, loblolly makes a much softer wood, and it's not as good a quality. If you go to Lowe's and find warped 2x4s, that's what you're going to find. That won't be the case out of the longleaf. The longleaf is going to have a better quality timber. The longleaf also creates a unique ecosystem, as I touched on before, because it's a fire-dependent ecosystem. The longleaf lives for a very long time in a grass stage, about 7 years, and then it grows up in a very short period of time, in just a year or two, to get out of the heat band of fire. So actually, while it's in a grass stage at this low level, fires can come through the forest, melt the needles around the growing tip, and it will protect it. It will not die. Loblollies and other pines don't have that. Because of that, fox squirrels, and especially the red-cockaded woodpecker, are drawn to the longleaf pine ecosystem. And that can create some problems too, because if they find a red-cockaded woodpecker on your land, then that's an endangered species, and you can't do what you want to do with that. I mean, if you log that, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, potentially. So that's why it's actually a good idea, if you can, to maintain longleaf pine ecosystems and make as much money off of it as you can in a way that's sustainable. And pine straw is sustainable. What it is a mulch that is harvested off the ground. They can harvest quite a bit of it. 150, 200 bales an acre is not uncommon in a year. And then they sell that, and it goes to golf courses, homeowners, businesses, and they put it out in their flower beds, and it creates a very desirable mulch. It doesn't break down. It has a good color, holds its color. It's actually much more affordable than pine bark mulch. If you compare square foot to square foot, you're going to be better off going with a pine straw than you will with the pine bark mulch, dollar for dollar, based on square footage. And it creates a very desirable landscaping characteristic. I mean, people want to see that Pinehurst, North Carolina look. Then you're going to get that with pine straw. It's the only way to get it. But it's not just popular here. I mean, it's popular across the Southeast. It's even popular in Virginia and going into New York. I mean, people ship pine straw across the United States, right out of this area. So there's a huge economic opportunity there, and the existence of pine straw gives people a reason and justification for keeping the longleaf pine ecosystem, and not, let's say you come through and you log. What is going to make you want to put on your 100 acres longleaf pines versus loblolly pines? Well, if you're just looking at timber, you're going to put loblollies. That's the only economic answer. But if you're looking at pine straw, you'll put longleafs, and you'll be able to manage them consistently. They'll give you a steady stream of income, and then at some point you can log them. But right now, the longleaf population is down, and that's because early on it was cut in the 15 and 1600s to sustain the European navies. They actually overlogged their forests in Europe and had to rely on North American longleaf pine to make their masts and build their ships out of. They also, if you go to Weymouth Woods, you'll find on the trees where they have cut into the trees, and there's scars on the trees from harvesting the sap and boiling it into tar pitch, turpentine, and rosin, which was then called naval stores. They would take the naval stores and paint them on their ships and use that to waterproof their ships and preserve them. kind of like creosote in a sense. But they would do that, and as a result, the longleaf pine, I always say, Columbus came here looking for gold. He didn't find that, but he did find the longleaf pine, and that's the next best thing. And actually, it's probably better than gold because you can actually do something with it.
Right.
Of course, gold has some uses, but not like the pine tree does. Yeah. And that's why the longleaf pine is so important. So it's not just the longleaf. You can harvest pine straw off of other trees as well, but off of other varieties of pine. But the best quality pine straw comes from the longleaf pine.
That's fantastic. I mean, we probably, as residents in the area, take the pine straw we see on a daily basis, weekly basis for granted. It has a very nice visual appeal, especially when, around businesses and even around our landscaping at home. And we probably do take it for granted because we don't really think about where it comes from and how much effort it took those producers, those farmers, those harvesters to get it from where it originates from to our beautiful landscape yards. So it's definitely something that I'm going to take away from today, that I'm going to be more mindful and appreciate the work that goes into making that appear in my beautiful yard. And then naturally, of course, when it falls from the trees. But so let's kind of go back to the prototype, the machine. So where are you at with it now? And with your company, what is the direction you're headed? I know you mentioned you're waiting on the patent, you just submitted for it. So what is that process right now, and how is the business operating today while you're waiting for that?
So last year, back in January of 2020, so this was pre-COVID, we went down to Austin, Texas, and competed in the Ag Innovation Challenge put on by the Farm Bureau. And we actually finished in the top 4 and won the People's Choice Award. So we won, the money we won from that was devoted, a large part of it, to funding our patent, because that's not something that is cheap to try to prosecute a patent. So then we filed for the patent, the non-provisional patent, in March of last year, and we did that based on the contacts and what we'd raised in Austin, Texas. So we came back, and our goal at that time was to get our first pine vine out and sold within 2 to 3 months of last January. And then COVID hit, and the economy started tightening up, and we realized that materials had gone up. We realized that the pine needle producers were not generally in a place where they could afford to go out and put out that kind of money onto one machine, especially a machine that the prototype works, but there are some additions that were made to the computer model that would make it better. So it's always a risk when you go out and you try to adopt something into your operation. So we decided at the time we were going to defer the marketing until now. Now I'm still getting, even now, I'm getting a call probably about once a week from people who are interested in it. They want to learn about it. I'm talking to one gentleman from Mississippi who's harvesting about 20,000 acres of pine straw down there. So if he decides to go through with it, he'll probably want more than one down there. And but at this point, we've got it as a computer model. We have some different models and different embodiments of the invention. We haven't sold one yet. We're still in the process of doing that, and COVID slowed us down. But what we're doing right now is we're maintaining. You can go to our website, www.pinevine.com, and check out what we've got. But we do have that out there, and we're right now working with some producers to put some final tweaks in it, because one of the things we noticed, like as I said before, is people will look at an invention, they'll say, okay, this is good, this is what I want, and then when you go to say, okay, do you want to buy this, then people look at it in a little bit of a different light. There's nothing wrong with that, because if you ask people to put out a large amount of money on a pine straw machine, then they need to know that it's going to not only work, but it's going to work in their operation. And that's a very important thing, because everybody does this different. I mean, that's what makes our industry so difficult, is that this is not standardized. Again, it's not like hay. It's not like corn. It's not like tobacco. I mean, people usually, if you're growing tobacco on a scale, of course, tobacco is not what it used to be in this area, but if you're growing it on a scale, then you're going to have your harvesters, your pickers, you're going to have your planters, you're going to be doing it. Everybody's basically going to be doing it very similarly. There's going to be a kind of a standardized way to do that, with some farmers throwing in their own little unique tricks here and there. But for pine straw, it's not necessarily that way. You've got people who are round baling it. You got people who are square baling it. You got people who are hand baling it. You got people who are using machines. You got people who are, if when they incorporate the pine bind and they're trying to clean it, they're cleaning it mechanically. You've got people who are using blowers to windrow it. You got people who are using little lawn tractor or say 20 horsepower tractor pulled hay rakes that are miniature custom built hay rakes to rake the pine straw. You've got people who plant pine trees in 8 by 8 rows. You got people who plant them in 12 by 12 rows. You got people who use natural stands and don't plant them at all. Those natural stands could be young. You could have old natural stands where the pine trees are not even are not close at all. They're really spread out. You can have them where they're super close together. And all these different factors make every acre of pine straw production just a little bit different, and it's very hard to adopt that. So when we're marketing to one producer, we have to make sure that what we produce and what we sell them meets their needs. So if there's somebody who is using a natural pine plantation where the trees are not in rows, then they have to be able to get that pine straw out of the woods without bringing a big piece of equipment through the woods, because if they bring it through the woods, it's going to hit trees and it's going to cause a lot of problems. If they're planting in wide rows, that's ideal. I mean, a 12-foot wide row is good, or even 14-foot. But and a longleaf pine will produce good even at that spread out like that, especially as it gets older. But it's very difficult to match what every single producer needs and create a scalable machine. That's one reason why John Deere International, they did not want to touch this, because they saw that, well, in their mind, I think number one, they didn't see it as a big need, as a big industry, and I think they were wrong about that. But I also think that the other problem is this is not something that's easily scalable and easily standardizable, and that's what your big equipment manufacturers want. That's why for entrepreneurs, look for things that are underserved. Look for things that where there really is a need. And I say this right now as somebody who's in the pine bind business, the pine straw cleaning business right now. We haven't sold one yet, but the fact is we're confident that we will. And once we do, it's a matter of overcoming that market inertia in that respect, because it's not something that you can step into overnight, and especially with a team of 5 guys who are working full time, create something that's going to come in and that's one thing that we have resisted. We've resisted venture capital. It's been offered to us, but we've resisted that. Now, maybe that was a mistake. I don't know whether it was or not. But it's possible that had we taken it, we could have come out and said, all right, we want to build 10 of these machines, and we want to put them out there, and we'll put them on a showroom floor somewhere, and we'll sell them. And had we, that's one option to go with. And if you take that option with venture capital, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to be aware, you are selling your business. But at the same time, maybe that's what you need to get it out there. We've taken it a little slower. We're content to do that. We know that we're going to have our patent. We're pretty confident that it's going to issue, and when we do that, we'll have 20 years of patent protection, starting from actually the year before last. So we're pretty confident with that it's going to issue. We may have to narrow some of the claims, but we think it's going to issue. And once we have that, we'll have protection for 20 years, and we'll be able to take it kind of at our pace. Now, we definitely want to be able to get something out there, hopefully within the next 12 months for sure, and start. And we know that once we start selling them, then the public's going to, the pine straw producing public's going to see that and be able to see, hey, we can actually pay this machine off in 1 to 2 months, and there's no other piece of equipment that you can run the numbers on and say we'll pay this off in 1 to 2 months.
Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing is you've got a lot going on, and you said it yourself, you and your team, you have full-time jobs. So I don't know if anybody caught that. He's done all this and has a full-time job. And oh, by the way, you're in school and soon to be graduating from law school at Campbell. And I will say also, this week alone is exam week. So, and he's here and sharing all of this with us, and we're so thankful. But I have to ask, how do you manage it all? What does I should say a week, I would say a day, but maybe a week look like for you right
Well,
now?
it's not the easiest thing all the time, but it's enjoyable. You got to enjoy what you're doing. I mean, by the time you reach your third year in law school, it's not as much fun as it was the first year. If it was fun the first year at all, I mean, it's okay. I enjoy it. Campbell's a very good school, by the way. They have a very good bar pass rate, and I've enjoyed it. There's some phenomenal professors there. But if you've heard about law school being hard, being demanding, and it is what you've heard. It is that. But you got to have some way to blow off some steam and to do what you're passionate about as far as other things go. And I think I mentioned this at the beginning. A lot of people would say, well, these things are hobbies. Well, I don't view them that way. I view what I do as a business, and I view that for the farm too. I mean, that's what I do. I can't give you a normal week or a normal day because there is no such thing. But during the week, I'm online at Campbell, so I'm taking classes, remotely right now, and I have done that since COVID hit, which actually has given me a little bit more time to do what I need to with the farm, because I am, as I think Sarah mentioned at the beginning, in 2014, the Parker Award that I won then was based on my concept for a farm to freezer beef operation, and we're still doing that. Actually, last year we sold the most we'd ever sold, which was 57 head, about 25,000 pounds of local beef. Yeah. And then this year we're on track. We've already done 24 head at this time this year, so just over the past 3.5 months. And that's sold mostly in quarters, halves, and whole cows, and I also sell some as individual cuts too. It's vacuum packed and dry aged, and that's something that I love doing. And so I get up and I do that, and I answer phone calls, answer emails, call people, make phone calls about that, and you've got to keep the farm sustainable. If you don't do that, then it's not going to be around. You can't expect to keep something if it's not growing and expanding and paying its own way. Then you just can't afford to, especially in this day and age, you can't afford to keep something like that. So it's very important for me to do that, and that's why I care so much about it. So that's something that I do every day. I get up and I try to find ways to make our farm profitable, and then I sit down and I do my law school. We had my first last exam, because I'm in my third year. I graduate in May, Lord willing. So my first last exam was day before yesterday, and I got an exam on Friday, and I got an exam next Friday. But it's important to if you care about something, you will make time to do it. If you don't care about something, you're not going to make time to do it. And I saw something the other day. I mean, look at your screen time. I'm guilty of this too. I mean, everybody is. You look at your phone and it says screen time 6 hours a day or something. Okay, if you got screen time 11 hours a day, you got it. Now some of that I'll put on podcasts and stuff and listen to it while I'm working. So I take I can deflect that a little bit. But if you're saying screen time 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour. What are you doing with that time? Do you need to be devoting it to that? And I'm talking about on your phone, not even on your computer answering emails and stuff. So if you care about something, you will make time to do it. And there's full-time job is 40 hours a week. That's a lot of time to be working for somebody else and making money. You're making money for yourself, but you're also building somebody else's business if you're working for somebody else. But if you are working for yourself and you're passionate about what you're doing, 100 hours a week isn't enough. So and you may be tired, but you're not going to be and you may be frustrated, but at least you can go to sleep and usually and feel like, I really care about what I'm doing, and it makes it a lot better.
Well, I want to prep the audience. So we're about to go into our Q&A time. So if you have some questions you've been thinking of, get those ready. We're gonna open it up for questions here in just a minute. But I do want to ask you, especially with everything that you're involved in, and all the business ventures you do have going on and school, do you ever get burnout? And what do you do?
Well, I do get burnout. One thing that helps me from getting burnout is having different things that I'm interested in. I mean, my grandfather, A.B. Parker, was a coroner. He ran a meat packing plant that he started. He was a farmer. He was a tobacco auctioneer. He worked for the Department of Insurance at different times. he did a lot of different stuff, and I say tobacco auctioneer. He's also a state auctioneer too, and did all kind of different stuff. But it's in my blood to do different things. And the fact is, you can get burnt out. I do sometimes. But if I get burnt out on school, I get up, I go to the barn, and I work with my cows, or I go organize beef in my freezer, or I make a Facebook post, or I try to advertise something, or I do something else. And everybody's going to be different. Some people are people who are built to work on one thing and focus. And I've got some people on my team that way. They are built to focus on one thing, and they are phenomenal at that. They are so good at focusing, and that is a blessing that they are so good at that. That's not me. I can focus, but if I had to do the same thing for 10 hours a day every day for my whole life, that would not be a great thing for me. I like to be able to do different things, get out. I'm kind of a people person, and I like to help people and interact. And if I get burned out on one thing, I do something else. If I'm tired of doing the farm, then I can come inside and I can do something else. I can study for school, or I can answer questions for somebody, or help them with pine straw. I can write a blog post. I can do different things, and that helps me a lot.
One thing I didn't hear you say: you don't quit.
Well, somebody told me if you don't quit, you win. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. So no, I don't believe in quitting. Now there's something to be said for, cutting your losses before you get, not throwing good money after bad. There's something to be said for that, but there's not anything to be said for quitting.
Well, now's the time I'd like to open it up to the audience. If anyone has any questions they'd like to ask Matthew about really anything we've touched on, or if there's something that you're curious about where he hasn't mentioned, I invite you to come forward. Just tell us your name, and if you're a student or if you are a business owner, and let us know what's on your mind. What questions do you have for Matthew?
Hi, my name is Marco, and I'm currently in the pine straw business. So what would be the biggest challenge the producers see at this, at this current moment?
Well, I think the biggest, you said you're in the pine straw business?
Yes.
I would say the biggest challenge is labor availability. I think that especially if you're trying to scale, I don't know exactly what what your business model is or what you're doing, but I hear from producers regularly that labor is hard to come by, because if you're a producer and you're trying to do, say, 10 acres a day, a lot of times I hear the number 40, 45 workers thrown out to go out and harvest 10 acres of straw. That may be about 2,000 bales. And finding that availability, actually North Carolina only harvests 14% of our available longleaf pine straw that is out there. And we are still the #1 importer of pine straw from other states. In other words, we import more pine straw into North Carolina from states like Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Mississippi, than any other state. Even though it's still a huge industry here, we don't harvest all of our straw. So what that tells me is that there is straw out there that needs to be harvested, #1, and there's demand out there for it because we're importing it. And what we're importing, frankly, is if it's not longleaf, it's not going to be as good a quality. So there's demand out there for it. There's the straw out there for it. So the question is, if there's a demand and there's the straw that's there, 86% of our longleaf acreage is unharvested. Why are we not coupling that together? And I think the response that I hear most often is that there's a lack of labor or an inability to get labor. I know that from my beef business. I know that Key Packing Company is a slaughterhouse and local processor up in Robbins. They're looking for help. If you know anybody who needs help or wants to work, tell them to go talk to them, because they need help, but they can't find people to work. And I think in the pine straw business, finding that is also a problem, because they rely a lot on migrant H-2B workers, and in that business, there's only a fixed number, because pine straw, if the law is still the same, pine straw is not considered an agricultural product, so it's hard. H-2A doesn't apply, H-2B applies, but under H-2B, I think it's capped at a certain number that Congress picks every year. So and they're competing in the pine straw industry with everybody in every other industry because it's not ag specific. H2A would be ag specific, H2B is not. So even if you can't just say, well, let's go get our H2B workers, because that's not going to work, and then you're paying your H2B workers $12, $13, $14 an hour or whatever that is. There's a huge labor drain in terms of what's driving up the cost of straw. So there's just a lot of problems. In other words, hard to get workers. When you get workers, it's expensive for the work that's being done because they don't deserve to make that money. But when you're out there picking it up by hand, that's you're doing good to produce the straw that you produce. If you can have a machine out there and put those workers out there, take those same 40 workers, run 5 independent pine straw producing sites, have equipment there, mechanize every single site, take those 40 workers, split them up 5 ways in these different sites, have them, instead of doing it by hand, have them run the equipment. You're now producing 5 times as much straw, which is available in North Carolina. You can do it. We're only harvesting 14%. You can harvest that straw, and now instead of importing straw, we're satisfying our own needs, and then we're exporting it into other states. We're exporting it into states that haven't even heard of pine straw. The market's out there. So that's what I hear the labor concern is the number one challenge. From your perspective, what do you think is the number one challenge?
That's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That's the exact same thing. And last question. Based on the pine straw, from what you've learned, do you think it's a mutual chain where not only does the business owner, landowner, and the worker make money? Is it consistent? Like it's not monopolized, not monopolized, but capitalized, I should say, where only one person makes a ton of money? Is it a mutual chain where everyone makes money?
Yeah, I think that's the way it should be. I think that's the way that it's hopefully moving toward, maybe with more mechanization, because the landowner is going to be able to make money, but the landowner right now probably is not making as much money as they could because there is land out there to harvest pine straw. Like I said, there's 14% is being harvested. So what that tells us is there's land out there. So there's not as much demand on the landowner side as there could be. And then on the producer's side, they're not making as much money as they should be because the labor costs are eating them up. And then as far as laborers in the middle, think about this. How much can you afford to pay somebody to rake pine straw by hand? How much, and clean it by hand and bale it by hand in a hand box baler? Then think, how much can you afford to pay somebody who is skilled at running a pine bind or skilled at running a baler, and their production is now quadrupled, quintupled, and they're producing way more straw and producing probably better quality straw because it's cleaner. So that creates more value for them. It's basically the difference of doing hand labor versus being able to actually run a machine. As long as you can train those people, and they're people who are able to be trained to run equipment, then they are going to be making more money. So by producing more straw, I see that as something that benefits everybody. And I don't see something, one of the things that people always asked us from the very beginning was, are you hurting jobs? Are you killing jobs by bringing this machine in? That always kind of surprised me because I'm thinking, no, I'm not killing jobs. The jobs are there. There's nobody to do the jobs. Yes, I see that as something that you can bring in and then help everybody on the chain. I don't think that's something that just one person makes more money. Now, certainly the producer who goes out and buys that machine is going to make more money. And that's the goal for the producer who's buying the machine. But I think at the end of the day, a rising tide raises all boats.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Another question? Yes, please go ahead. Yes, sir, if you can.
I'm a farmer and a businessman.
He's a pine straw baron right there.
I'm wondering why our agricultural classes at our local high schools, all through the Pine Belt here in North Carolina and throughout the Southeast, aren't getting on the bandwagon and teaching folks how to do this and how to do it on a scale that would incorporate machinery. I think that that's important. I watch a lot of RFD TV, and I see Future Farmers of America are very active all across the country, especially in the Midwest. But they seem to be a little better informed and more proud of their education in agriculture. And I'm wondering just how we can get more interest in our pine needle industry here.
Well, I think that's a great question. First of all, I want to thank you for coming out. That's Terry Bryant. If you need pine straw, he can help you with pine straw. But he was quoted in the Washington Post, wasn't he, on pine
Yes,
straw?
yes,
So
sir.
he is an authority. But I will tell you, as far as your question goes, I don't know why there's not more education there. I know that that's something that I've been suggesting across the board. We need to have education to help people realize that there is money to be made in agriculture if they are able to approach it with an entrepreneurial spirit. You can make money on 10 acres of ag if you're in strawberries, if you're in different industries that are niche industries like that. Pine straw is the same way. You can, now maybe not with 10 acres, but you can do it. You can make money with pine straw, and right now you see the same thing in farming that you see with and I think probably pine straw is even further along than agriculture generally as far as the median age. I don't know this, but this is my hunch. I think for farming it's something like 57, 58 years old, and it gets older on a regular basis. And I think pine straw is probably at least that. And you see that across the board on a lot of different industries. So there's not people to come back in and fill it in. So I don't know, about the high schools. I think that's a great idea, and I think people should be looking at that. I think community colleges should be looking at that. If there's interest in teaching classes on agriculture or engineering or practical entrepreneurship, I'd be happy to talk with the college or anybody about doing something like that, because I think it is something that would be beneficial, especially and in the high schools. That's a good idea. I don't know why that's not been done. I just don't think I don't think people view that. I don't think. Sometimes I don't know if agriculture is recognized as the true economic driver that it really is. I mean, it's a huge industry. I think #1 industry in North Carolina, and it is basically where our wealth comes from. If you're not mining it, then you're farming it. Otherwise, you're just you're just manufacturing what has already been produced. So the original wealth development comes from the land in some respect. Even if you go to Silicon Valley, where does your silicon come from? It comes from it's mined. So I think that that's a good point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. Pamela, did you have one?
Actually, Matt, I just have to tell you this. I was always impressed with your constant enthusiasm in English classes, which is a rarity. And so many times students would take English and they would say, I hate English. And I would say, well, maybe you will learn to love it. But Matt always came in, no matter what we were doing, you were always enthusiastic. And I loved hearing today about your grandfather, about your mother and your father, and their constant watching over you. I think that's wonderful. And I've always been impressed with, you took all of my English classes, you took our travel classes to London and Paris, and you loved every minute of it. Even when we were delayed, you loved it. I remember we were so excited about getting home, but you said, no, let's go eat. So we went to eat, and we got really excited about that. But I loved hearing about the pine straw machine, and I thought, that's Matt. And I remember when you bought your cows, and I said, yeah, that's Matt. That's Matt. And then I knew about your grades at Sandhills, that you were a straight A student at Sandhills. And I hope you don't mind me telling whomever that you were a straight A student at State too. And I said, yep, that's Matt, that's Matt. And now you are almost a lawyer, and I say, that's Matt, what will he do next? And I don't know anything about machinery, but I do know about pine straw because I live under pine trees and I'm always sweeping it, and I think of you many times with that. But I just want to the world to know that I am really proud of you, very, very proud of you. And I just say, keep on going, because I have never, ever seen you in all these years unenthusiastic about anything. Maybe it's just that I don't know you, but you are an enthusiastic person, and I think that's a real key to intelligence too. So I really enjoyed today. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Barbara Cole was, she was one of my favorite teachers. She taught me English 111, 112, the travel class. That means a lot. Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. She really inspired me to do a lot, and to, I tell people that the best thing for a student is to have a teacher that inspires you to not want to embarrass yourself in front of them. And if you have a teacher like Barbara Cole who wants to, who inspires your soul to think, okay, if I misplace a comma in this paper, she is going to be so disappointed in me. I can't do that. I can't let her down like that. So that to me is what one thing that makes a good teacher. And thank you so much. You were such a good, and still are such a good influence. Thank you.
Yes, please.
My name is, sorry, it's a little low here. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, sorry. My name is Jeremy with Axios Investigations Firm. I've just come here to hear you out. I think I'm very impressed with your panache and your entrepreneurialism, which I embrace, obviously. Could you explain how you created your business plan? Obviously, we understand that creating a business plan is the cornerstone of creating a business, how important that is, and what you did to create your business plan, and then, of course, implement it. And then also, could you kind of touch up on the importance of networking within like-minded individuals to help grow your brand, and then as well as expand your brand? Because obviously we understand that sometimes, like the Pine Straw gentleman, he may not have the ability or the capital to get a machine. However, he could work with someone that does have a machine, and then create some kind of teaming agreement to allow them to work together, and then, of course, look at, revenues and some kind of compensation. Could you explain the importance of that for the audience, please? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to make sure I get it right. Business plan is basically the first one, the networking and being able to capitalize on that, right? Okay. So for the business plan, it's a good question. I have multiple businesses, so I have, they have all come about in kind of different ways. But it is important to have a business plan, because I think I pointed out at the beginning, if you approach something as a hobby, it's going to be a hobby. If you approach something as, I'm going to see if I can make money at this, you will not make money at it. You will not make money at it unless you set out to make money at it, in my opinion. Now, for the Pine Straw business, we haven't taken any kind of dividends or money or out of that up to this point, because everything right now has stayed in the Pine, in our LLC, and we've accumulated money from prizes, and we've been very fortunate to do that, and that's funded some of our R&D, and when we start selling our machines, then that's going to what we're doing there is we've contracted with an equipment manufacturer that's local in North Carolina to make our machines here in North Carolina, made in America, and then we'll get they will get paid by our customers, and then they'll cut us basically a royalty check for it. And then we can do the marketing, they can do the marketing as well. But it'd be mainly us doing the marketing, because we are the ones who are the officials and the authority in the Pine Straw business as compared to them. They are the manufacturers. But there are, we had, for that business, we had a kind of a crossroads. We could, in three ways, we could take venture capital or not. We could also decide, do we want to build this and have an exit strategy, or do we not? Because a lot of people who are doing this want to build a business and then build it as big as possible, and then when it still has potential, they unload it and they make $1 million, $10 million, $1 billion, whatever. They sell the business. Now, we had the opportunity to do that. We explicitly rejected having an exit strategy, and the reason we did not want to have an exit strategy is, well, it's not so much that we would be opposed to selling at some point, but we wanted to see it through, and we were passionate about it. So at the end of the day, that might cost us money. But if that does cost us money, it's probably money well lost, because we are passionate about what we're doing. If we look at it and only wanted to make as much money out of it as possible, then that would be probably more on the table, and we would be more aggressively marketing to big firms to purchase that from us. We weren't doing that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If we were people who had not gotten so emotionally attached to the pine straw industry, then maybe we would have done that. And I absolutely think that if you're in business, you should look at that and put that on the table. That wasn't the right option for us, but there's nothing wrong with keeping that on the table. Now, for my beef business, and I bring that up because as far as revenue generation, that's much more successful and sustainable at this point. And it's also been in place since 2013. So for that, like I said, what I've wanted to do there was sit down and figure out, okay, what are my fixed costs? What are my variable costs? And at the beginning, before I really do that, I have to ask, what is the need? Now, for pine straw, the need was labor. We talked about this. I mean, that is the problem, labor. For beef, people thought I was crazy in 2013, 14, and now people are realizing local beef is actually a good thing and is much more popular. But in 2013, 14, I saw, hey, there is a movement to eat local. There's a movement to know where your food comes from, know that it hasn't been implanted with growth hormones, hasn't been fed antibiotics, hasn't been fed animal byproducts, pasture raised. I knew that, and I wanted to I felt like we could really capitalize on that. So I found the problem there, and then marketed that. But at the end of the day, in either case, you do have to have a business plan and a way to quantify your success. The one thing you cannot do is go out there and say, okay, I'm going to make what I make, and then let that be that. You can't do that. You have to say, I need to be making X dollars per head of cattle, or X dollars per pound, or however you want to quantify it. Or I need to be making this much money per pine straw machine, and if I don't do that, then we have to take a step back and we have to decide, is this what we want to do? So I've always been relatively flexible with a business plan, and I've always wanted to keep my options as open as possible and be able to kind of sidestep problems and that sort of thing. I've never really believed in wedding myself to a business plan and not being able to get out of it and being so firm in it that I'm investing into a lot of capital that that I'm not able to, if I had to sell it, that it's going to depreciate really bad. So I don't want to commit to a business plan that is super duper inflexible. But it is important to have a business plan, because if you don't have a business plan, you don't have a business. Now for the networking, of course, we've networked this entire time, and going down to Austin, Texas for the Farm Bureau convention, we met a lot of great people down there, and connecting people is very important, because, like as you pointed out, if you're somebody who does not have the capital to buy a pine vine or buy all the equipment, say you don't have $150,000 to put out and buy all baler, pine vine, blowers to windrow it, and all this stuff, maybe you can start out with working with somebody else, and that's what I've done. In my business, I've not, we had to do, we had land, but as far as building cattle working facilities and a place to store beef, and as far as doing that, I started from the ground up, and did that relatively slowly. But I did that by working with people that I could trust, and they were willing to help me. You find people who are willing to help you, and then you do what you can to help them, because it can't just be a one-way relationship. It can't be, I know everybody wants to find a mentor. You can't just find a mentor who is going to hand everything to you. You've got to be able to do stuff for them. I mean, whether that's buying stock from them, or working with them, or being willing to put in hours working with them, for low or no or little pay. You have to be able to work and show people that you really mean what you're doing, and at that point, you're then looking at the opportunity to work with people and develop into a good partnership. But absolutely, I mean, nobody's an island unto themselves, and you can't expect to go into business and and do everything on your own knowledge. It doesn't work that way. You have to, so that's my take on that, is you have to stand on the shoulders of giants if you can, because you've got to be able to say, what has come before me? What is the established knowledge in this field? Everything I knew about beef, I didn't take any classes on that. I learned it by Googling it. I read, research papers from Oklahoma and Texas A&M and Georgia and Virginia and NC State, and it took a lot of time to do that. But I learned a lot to do it, and you cannot start and expect to be able to do everything just on your own. If you can network, that's you can't put a price on that.
Well, I think it's time, Matthew. Wow, this has been such an informative and for me, inspirational and educational time that we thank you so much for your time and your willingness and transparency to share your journey, your businesses, your challenges, and also your success. So we wish you well. So just a real quick round of applause, again, for thank you. And thank you for everyone streaming online. We have just a little bit left to go. It's a very special part of the programming. I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Sarah. There's some awards presentations that are definitely important to mention. So, Sarah.
All right, thank you, and thank you guys. Who knew pine straw could be so interesting, right? I didn't, and I will say that as a mountain girl, pine straw was not my favorite thing when I moved down here. I was just like, and I couldn't believe that people actually bought it. That really blew my mind. So, but I have learned a lot today, a lot of history, and like Ms. Cole said, Matthew's been around and made a mark everywhere you've been. So we just expect the continuation of that. And the gentleman who came down and asked a question, I believe you have an entrepreneurial event coming up. You want to just stand up and give it a shout out real quick while you're here?
All right. So this Saturday, I came to give this gentleman because I support other, just as you mentioned, other entrepreneurs. This Saturday at Grace Church in Southern Pines, I have what they call VETS, which is a Veterans Entrepreneur Training Seminar. I have about 7 or 8 high net worth individuals that are coming in to speak from all over the nation that have net worth of a few million or more. And they'll be coming in to help others learn about entrepreneurialism, learn about the mistakes, learn about anything that they've accomplished, just like this gentleman. And I think the thing is that it's important to understand that you can learn from other people, and as well as learn their mistakes and their positives, as well as I'm also having some other informational people there, that, like government contracts, people that move through the USO, the transitional. So I'm actually not only training, but I'm also providing an informational. So I'm motivating you, as well as providing some people there that can take you to the next level and explain the processes of business. So please feel free. Students and faculty are 100% covered. There's no ticket price. It's all 100% covered. I've already paid for it all. So it's just for me to support students that want to be business owners or entrepreneurs in any way. That's kind of our sort of passing down mentorship, as he said, to show us a giant. I'm not a giant, maybe a giant in stature, but necessarily a giant in financial. But here nor there, I want to support others and students and entrepreneurs in their ventures. So please feel free, just show your student ID at the door, or faculty or whatever, and you're more than welcome to come. Thank you very much.
That's great.
Sarah, just in case anyone didn't hear for the online viewers, can you repeat? So it's the Veteran Entrepreneurial.
Yes, it's a veteran entrepreneurial training seminar. VETS is the acronym, so VETS. I kept it easy so that way everybody remembers.
And when is it?
Plus, I need to remember it. So yes, ma'am.
And when is it?
It's Saturday at 9 a.m.
Saturday at 9 a.m.
So the Veterans Entrepreneurial Training Seminar at Grace Church here in Southern Pines,
9 o'clock.
Saturday at 9 a.m.
Yes, ma'am. And we have an online link as well. So if you are a student.
I have it.
Oh, you have it?
I'm Teresa, by the
Oh,
way.
hey, Teresa. Okay,
We talked
hey,
on
how
the
are you?
phone
Okay,
about
yes,
it.
ma'am. Thank you.
Sent the information out to 4,000 emails in my constant contact. Or maybe I put it on Facebook. I think that's
Yes,
what I did.
ma'am.
Put it on our Facebook. But if you know how to contact me, Teresa Reynolds, in the Small Business Center, I can send you the link and the I mean, you certainly can show up, if, you know,
Yeah, I
because
would-
he just
more
told
than
you,
welcome.
you know, how to get there. But if you need more information about it, if you'll just email me reynolds@sandhills.edu.
And I'll send Ms.
Or the
Teresa
Small
the
Business
URL.
Center.
Oh, sorry. go ahead.
If you'll just contact me if you need more information about it, I have what he sent me about it that
Yes,
I
ma'am.
helped advertise for.
Thank you,
it.
Ms.
So
Teresa.
feel
And I
free
will
to
be sending
contact
the
me.
URL for the web link. So if you feel like, hey, Saturday morning, I'd like to eat my bowl of cereal or watch TV or something like that, hey, no problem, I understand. I'm usually that way as well. But hey, you know, I think if you want to sit down and relax and watch it, I'll be sending Ms. Teresa a URL on Thursday, because we had to create the URL. And if y'all want to watch it, you're more than welcome. She will have access to it, and it's a free access, so you don't have to pay for anything again. Just log in and relax. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am, it's at Grace Church in Southern Pines. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Grace Church in Southern Pines.
And I think this is a great example of one of the things I love about this area is that we have a lot of entrepreneurs in this area, and it's a pretty close group, and it's a very supportive group. You know, we like to share information, we encourage each other, and I think these awards that I'm giving today are representative of that as well. These are entrepreneurship awards. They're separate from our regular student award process because they are reviewed by a small committee of people who are involved in the community, who have supported these. And so I want to make sure that we recognize these people today. So is Sarah Asadi here by any chance? Well, Sarah, I'll just tell you, she is receiving a Business Booster Award. She's actually an early childhood major here on campus, and she's already currently working with innovative outdoor learning, but she's planning on starting her own daycare facility. And, you know, I think she's a great example of another young person who is not just, you know, interested in getting a job, but really has a passion for what she's doing and a vision for something that she wants to offer to folks. And so she was receiving the Business Boosters Award, which is one of the three awards I want to give today. So congratulations to her, and hopefully she's listening in. How about Noah Martin? Is Noah here? Oh, awesome. So Noah is receiving the Mary Dixon Award, and Mary Dixon, just to give you a little idea, is actually the former department chair for business administration and management technologies. And this entrepreneurship program on our campus was really her vision. She's the one who was instrumental in starting the summit and starting our academic piece of the program. She retired a few years ago, and the Mary Dixon Award was created to honor her contributions. She loved her students, and she loved the idea of students going out and making a difference in the community, not just as a volunteer, but as real economic drivers. And so Noah, who's a local Pinecrest graduate, he's done all sorts of things, and that was one of the reasons you really stood out to us for a Mary Dixon Award. And you're involved right now with I wrote it down here, Imperfect Collective, correct? Yeah, which is a pop-up business that he started in town here. He's also involved in making skateboard decks, right? So join me in congratulating Noah Martin. And Noah, if you'll come up after we're finished, I'll introduce you. Okay. Our next award is the Tony Parker Award. It's also a special award to us because the Parker family actually established this in Mr. Tony Parker's, as a memorial to him. He was a local business owner and a real community contributor in the Southern Pines area. He's involved in choosing this award winner, and so we're very fortunate that he has continued to fund this award, and with this year's award goes to Cruz Santiago. And Cruz is a health and fitness major. He is a retired or a veteran, and he has got big plans to start his fitness studio. We're super excited about it and look forward to that. So sounds like you got some connections right here. And I'll just go to, I'll say that one of the things, even though I'm in the business administration department, I love the fact that we have award winners from different academic areas. We've had massage therapy students, we've had auto mechanic students, cosmetology students, health and fitness. This is at least the second award we've given to a student from that area. So I think it just goes to show you don't have to major in business to think like an entrepreneur or start your own business. So, Santiago, if you want to come up and get this and hang around for a picture. Well, that is all that I have. I appreciate every bit of y'all's attendance and attention. Another thank you to Matthew and to Lindy as well, and to Teresa for helping us have this first different sort of entrepreneurial summit. But I'm just glad we were able to pull one off this year. So
I just wanted to say, I have got business cards. I'm happy to talk to anybody afterwards, or if you have any questions or want to come out and talk to me sometime, or give me a call, and I'm happy to talk to anybody and give you, don't take my word for it, definitely, the nice thing is you can talk to a lot of different people and get a lot of different advice, but I'm happy to help you the best way I can. So I'm happy to talk to anybody afterwards and give you my contact information if you want it.
We would like to thank Sarah as well. She's very instrumental in this event.
thank you. And I'd like to take some pictures of our award winners too. So thank you. Have a great afternoon.
And scene. That was great.
That's good.